I suppose. Alrighty, well, let's get this show on the road a little bit. So the point that I want to drive home basically for this entire call, right? And we've got Sherry and Jeff on here, just kind of like showing the importance of this message, right? Is something that is extremely important in all business and all investing and all everything is consumer confidence, right? And while you should not be predicting the future, and I can't tell you what's happening, I can 100% tell you what has been happening, right? And leveraging this document, you should be telling your clients as well what's happening, whether they're buyers or sellers. It's two sides of the same coin. And this market, as you're going to see shortly, is a very, very, very unique market. So let me get going and tell you what I'm talking about. All right.
Can I throw an amen in there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Amen. All right, go ahead.
All right. So as usual, so I'm gonna skip through the executive summary. We'll get there, right? But this is what I want you to notice. So if you look at the bottom row, right? The bottom row is this month last year, okay? And I'm just gonna go really quick and then we'll go through it in a second. We have 36% less active listings than we did this time last year, right? We have more new listings, more under contract, more homes sold, less expired, less withdrawn, right? We also close faster, are on the market less, have a higher absorption rate, a higher average sales price, higher average list sale, and less month inventory. This is across the board better, right? And better is an interesting word to use here, again, with the context. It's not necessarily better because you'll see the overall volume is less, but so the pie might be smaller, but the competition within that pie is very, very, very high, right? This is for Buncombe County. I am going to, find the screen. There you go. We're going to share another screen once it lets me do that. Let's try this again. Share desktop. So this is the people have spoken. This is Haywood County. Okay. Let's go enter full screen. Haywood County, same deal for the most part, right? Active listings, a lot less. Somehow more new listings, somehow more under contract, somehow more homes sold, right? Little less expired, but that's not terribly affecting the market. Less withdrawn, I talk about that. I think that's seller resilience, right? It's taking slightly longer to close. That's on the mortgage side and inspections, but less time on the market, higher absorption rate, less month inventory, everything, right? We'll go to Henderson if I can click the buttons right, and you'll see the exact same story, right? So this market is something to brag about, really, right? It's something to educate your clients that despite them turning on the news and it being pretty negative in a lot of aspects of life right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. This real estate market is something to be proud about. Henderson County, a little bit less new listings than last year, right? But how do we do that with significantly less active listings? Almost 40% less. More under contract, more homes sold. Again, the same story is across all the surrounding counties, essentially, of Buncombe and Western North Carolina. So now we'll focus in on Buncombe and just kind of go through them. Okay.
So hold on, Zach.
Yeah.
So if we're in a buyer consult or a listing consult and the question comes up, how is the market? How do we respond to that as an agent base?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say is that the market right now is extremely competitive, right? If you are buying, then have your ducks in a row. Make sure that you're doing your research. Listen, well, first, basically look at this report as one tool. If you have something else, go ahead and use that as well. But know what you want and make that offer and make a strong offer and realize that you might not get the first home you're going for. Start preparing them and not with anything but the sound data and the evidence of what the market has been doing. If you're a seller, if you're at a listing appointment and they're on the fence about selling their home, personal circumstances notwithstanding, there is significantly less competition for the homes that come on the market right now. And basically every single price range. I'm going to skip ahead just because we're talking about it. These are the price ranges. So our absorption rate on our month's inventory, and if you forget what that means and you don't have it on deck, right here on the right, all you have to do is read. But really quick, green sellers, red buyer. If you're talking to the listing, every single price range is low months of inventory, high absorption rates, meaning they're selling fast and there's not a lot going around. Right now is an incredible time to sell. And then you set them up for the next home they're going to be in, refer them to someone in a different state. You know, you're basically able to really do your job with this great deal of confidence of what's been happening. And again, back to the beginning, consumer confidence, right? It's not a belief, it's not a sales pitch, it's giving the data and saying what's been happening that they may not have access to. And so that's how I would do that. Would you add anything? Was that the answer you're looking for? I know you're driving, so I might just. Silence is consent. All right. So moving along, this is what's going to help you put everything into perspective, right? Volume and activity, right? So look at the last one over here. It says overall volume was up 1.2% from last month, so just a little bit higher, right? But down 21% from this time last year. Look at the graphs, the sticks, right? The stick on the right is a lot smaller than the stick on the left. You look at the bottom, July is highlighted in a green box, and then last July is in a red box, right? So active listings have continued to be well behind last year's pace, right? Down 36%. But keep reading to figure out the context. I've added these little notes, right? So the total homes under contract increased a little bit from last month, 5%, not nothing, but 6% more under contract than last July. If there are less homes overall and more homes under contract, you just start, like when I was in economics classes, right? You start taking all these things and economic theory gets kind of complicated. So I'd always basically break it into cookies, right? If I've got a jar of cookies and it's just jam-packed, when everyone comes around, I'm like, here's a cookie, it's all good. Like I'll freewheel and deal out cookies, right? But as there's a lot less cookies, they're a little bit more valuable. I don't want to just give them away because I personally love cookies, especially chocolate chip, right? So same deal here. There are a lot less cookies in the jar, right? And yet they're getting doled out more. What does that relate to? Well, that will relate to how fast people want to get that cookie, how quick, how long it'll stay on the market, and what they might be willing to pay. And we'll be getting there as well. We'll keep going, right? Listings and closings. So the green line is homes sold. And now remember, this is a lagging metric. If it's sold in June, it went under contract before June, depending, right? Most likely late, like, you know, in May, basically, we'll call it, right? So the green line is homes sold. Last July, 453. This July, 473. More homes sold, even though there were less for sale, right? New listings. So these are the red bars, right? March, you'll see that we had a spike in March where it was going up seasonally, as it should. And then it went down tremendously. What happened there? The coronavirus. Real estate wasn't an essential service. There was tremendous fear and uncertainty. We didn't know how things were going to go down, right? Since then, you'll see that new listings have increased. People want in on the market, right? More people wanted in on the market this July than last July, right? This is the message you want to be giving. This is the truth. This is what's happening. We're 2% above last year's new listings. Home sales increased for the second month in a row, up 29%. Like look at, so everyone's familiar with the hockey stick graph. April to May looks like the hockey stick, the low part, and now May, June, July, this just going up, right? Homes are flying off the shelves. We had 4% more closings this July than last July. Right? So despite the pandemic, the continued increase we saw in home sales in July was heavily influenced by the potential first signs of at least a housing rebound, looking at the graphs, right, that was started in late April, early May. So when people are saying, I may want to wait, I may want to do all these things, that's, you know, you do your best to tell them that it's in their best interest based on what's been happening now. That you're not promising anything in the future. They're going to have their own opinions. They're going to make a decision with all the data humanly available to them that you'll provide. But look at what's been happening. If you had that discussion in May, you know, waiting may have not been in their best interest. Home prices, back what I was talking about, right? So we have your average and your median. Really quick, the average is if you get all the homes divided by how many sold, total up the values that they sold for, and there's your average, right? And the example I always give is if you sold 100 homes, 99 for $1, 1 for $1 trillion, well, your average, it wouldn't make any sense, right? There wouldn't be a home out there in the market. So then you've got your median, which is if you line all the homes up in order and then just pick the middle one. So the average is higher in Buncombe, right? Which means than the median, which means that the higher end market is pulling it up. It's a very strong high end market. But if you look at the median, look at the trend, right? The trend is positive. Home prices are increasing. 329, so basically 330,000 was the median home. Remember the whole list, the one in the middle. And this time last year, it was 22,000 less. That is not bad, right? So even though the average home price went down just 1% last month, and it's the second month of decreases in a row, still modest decreases. We're still 6% higher than last year, right? So the positive home appreciation seems to be holding despite global uncertainty, you know? There's something to be said there. Despite everything going on and the rest of the news media, people are still putting value in homes. That is great. Days on the market. All right, so the days on the market increased compared to last month, but it really couldn't have got much lower. And again, this is overall, this is the whole county, even those homes that took forever to sell. So I'm gonna zoom back really quick, right? For your consultations with buyers or sellers, you'll go to the average days on market right here for their price range, right? So if you were between 400 and 450, basically, it took 41 days on average to sell, right? And they sold for just about 99% of asking. And so that's how you start getting into it, right? And so that's an important metric because how many homes sold? 43, that's a good chunk. If you go down to the 1.5 million to 2 million, well, it took 103 days on average, right? But there are only 2 homes sold. So that number is not as strong. The sample size is not as large, right? So that's how you start using these slides. And again, if you don't know, so basically green is seller, red is buyer, and not that one's good and one's bad, depends on which side you're on, but the definitions of the absorption rate and the month inventory are right there on the right if you need any help. So days on the market, right? So selling faster than this time last year. Again, all the metrics except for how many are available total are better across the board. So homes valued between 500 and 600,000 moved fastest, followed by the 250 to 300, basically, about 35 and 38 days each, right? So kind of a quick description. Homes in Buncombe are experiencing historically low days on the market due to a combination of both low inventory and high demand. People want these homes. And if you're out there selling and trying to buy, you feel that. But now you can point to something that's more than just that. You know, you're giving a lot of confidence to what you have to say. Contract to close. So this is not in your control at all, but it's really, really, really good to know, right? Contract to close. So days on the market is from the moment it's listed to the moment you receive an offer. And contract to close is from the moment you receive the contract until the time you close, right? So it took about 3 days longer compared to last month, but that's still 26% faster than last July. That is incredibly important because rates are at historic lows. People are refinancing and they're buying homes, as you know, more than they bought last year. So that shows the strength of our mortgage professionals and our financial market in this market in Buncombe County, right? And it's similar in the other ones. We'll post those later. So that's a great, great, great sign given the tightening lending standards and overall market uncertainty. Back to comparing this, which is the overall macro market to the micro market of your client, you would say, well, here's where the county's at. And then you bump up and you go, well, here's where your price range is at and what we can expect, ballpark, right? And then to that, contract to cash is for the moment you list a home with someone, it goes live on the MLS to the moment they deposit that check and they no longer own that home, they're on to better things, right? That took about 12 days longer than last month, right? But still 26 days faster than last July. And this time the increase was a combination of time spent on the market, the days on market went up a little bit, and so did the contract to cash. That's what, or rather contract to close. That's what this number is. It's the whole process, right? And that's the down and dirty. Right? If anyone has any questions about how I get all this number, the absorption rate calculations, month of inventory and pending is here. I've got all the back end data. So if anyone wants to go into it and zero into something and see where it comes from, love to do that with you. At this moment, I'd like to open it up. If anyone has anything to add, any questions, we could just go over that now. And this is Buncombe. We're going to be posting the people spoke and we did Haywood. We're going to be posting Henderson as well. It's a version of the same story. It's a version of the exact same story as I went over quickly with the at a glance.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be interviewed for an article about the market. So
amazing.
Yes. So where is there a consensus on where are buyers coming from right now?
Oh, that's
what states, out of town, local? What's
that's a great question. So does anyone want to jump into that? Because I'll be, you know, the data from the MLS isn't giving you that answer necessarily. No. This is
there was a, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say there was a really good article in the Citizen Times, I think it was this morning, kind of about all of the, like where in terms of out of town clients people are coming from. There were some good statistics in there and then just talking about the different ways that the population here increases, and that is kind of the biggest one right now, it seems. So there's some good information in that article.
Do you remember, Simone, where they were coming from?
I can, you know what? I have the article on my phone. I'll go grab it up. But I think it was the biggest ones were, I think, Florida and South Carolina, but I can grab that. Just one second.
Okay, that would be awesome. One of the other questions while she's doing that was, are buyers changing what they're looking for in the homes they're purchasing?
Very interesting. Anyone want to jump in?
No one works with buyers, which that's okay. That's good.
I do see a difference on what people are looking for. So a lot of people were looking for part-time summer. And now I'm seeing, well, you know, people that I've been working with for a little while, and their criteria in several cases changed. Like, well, we're thinking maybe starting part-time, but to be a full-time now, which before it wasn't. I think they're planning on moving them permanently here sooner than they were, originally planning. I had a couple, actually 2 sets of buyers, both from Georgia. And I'm getting people from, from Georgia, California, surprisingly too. But that's the only difference that I see. A lot of people were looking at these areas as a vacation destination in the long term being permanent. And I feel like they're moving their permanent plans to sooner. That's my personal experience.
Is that a trend with other buyers wanting to move here sooner than later? Anybody know?
Well, I mean, if you turn back the clock a little bit, right? I am one of those people. I just moved from Santa Monica. I was out in California, right? And so, especially with what's been happening in the pandemic, I can say with a very, strong degree of confidence that there are a lot of people making the decision to leave those overpopulated urban areas and to come somewhere a little bit less populated, right? Except without sacrificing a lot. And so you don't sacrifice a great deal coming to Asheville. Asheville has restaurants, great scene, like all of that, infrastructure, schools, there's flights right to Miami, round trip for like $50 sometimes. So I think Asheville has a lot to offer right now. And so out-of-state buyers is not at all surprising.
And I'm actually also finding that some people that were originally looking for Asheville, now they want to go Haywood County or Transylvania County. Like, oh, we want something more peaceful. Like, we think everybody wants to come to Asheville, and I try to take them to Asheville or Buncombe County to look at homes, and they're asking me to go more like a little more remote. I think that's what I'm seeing too. We're going to see the growth around Buncombe that they were kind of like way behind. I think those are going to speed up.
So I did find I just pulled up this article, and I realized the data is actually based on folks who moved between 2013 and 2017, which I was actually one of because I came from Chicago. So the top states during that time, it was Florida, South Carolina, New York, California, Georgia, Colorado, Tennessee. Yeah, it keeps going. But I think with the pandemic too, I keep telling my husband, like, if we had not already left Chicago, we would be moving at this exact moment.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna show something really quick, if I can click the right buttons. Okay, so this is Haywood County, right? Back to Valeria's point here. New listings, a lot of people are starting to think it's a good idea to sell in Haywood, and homes sold tracking right there with it. You'll notice the gap between 141 and 173 on the far right. Well, that means there was, roughly 31 houses added to the market, right? Because 141 left and 137 went on. So the net difference was only about 30 homes. That's very competitive, very, very, very competitive. And that same thing.
And every single person wants to live a little peaceful, more remote, but everybody wants high-speed internet. Which I think would be a good area to invest. And maybe Skyrunner is becoming a constant question for me in other alternatives for high-speed internet.
Yeah. Very cool. Anyone else, or anyone have anything to add, or a question on how to kind of like leverage this in the moment? Maybe Jeff's got something.
Zach, can you zoom out a little bit?
Yeah, here, let me get to, oops, sorry. That was the wrong button entirely, wasn't it?
I'm hearing a lot of that, Zach. There's a lot of wrong buttons going on.
It's horrible. All right, which slide do you need?
No, the same one. I just was on my screen. All I could see was most of the graph.
Sorry, so I went back to Buncombe, just because that's the sample size of Haywood isn't terribly large, but it's the same. The numbers are different, but the shapes are the same.
Yeah.
Right.
And I apologize. I had to get off. I'm back at my desk now, though. We talked about incorporating this in a conversation just right before I had to get off. I think you're right. Consumer confidence is probably the biggest talking point. I think also it's really important. So data is a tool, right? Remember that your value proposition as an agent has to create a competitive advantage for whomever you're in conversation with. So sometimes we err on the side of data to create urgency. Hey, there's a ton of homes coming, or there's a ton of buyers and not a lot of homes coming on the market. You should list now. What I would invite you guys all to do is that when we find a data like this and we try and go toward a leverage point, communicate to your consumer, and it starts with you understanding it first, but working with me will give you X advantage. So instead of pushing them into a pool, saying there's a ton of buyers, you need to get in the market, make sure to take that one step further. Here's how I'm going to help you stand above. So that can be through pricing, right? It can be through different marketing channels. It can be through access on the buy side, access to homes for sale that maybe aren't listed. So use this data as a tool, but don't just dump the data on them. What they're looking for is a consultant, someone to help them interpret the data and find a competitive advantage. And competitive advantage doesn't have to be a dirty word. We all make the choices we make with who we align with from a vendor standpoint and an alignment standpoint with consultants across every industry based on how it serves us and meets our needs. So just make sure that as you're interpreting this data and taking it to your clients, take it that one step further. Here's how I would play in this arena and help you get the highest net for your house. Or here's how, as a buyer, how we can find a competitive advantage because it is so competitive.
Right.
That's my end of my sermon.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Kind of at the beginning, I've got to find better words to say here, but like the numbers without the context and what they mean aren't terribly useful. They could go onto a website and get this same stat. If you're not bringing in, given this, and with my experience and what we've seen so far, like Jeff was saying, you could price competitively and you could get, like you could start throwing in where you add that value. These numbers are just a tool. Life isn't a balance sheet. There's so much more. Something Jeff loves to say all the time that I love, that I'm definitely stealing from him, is the quantitative and the qualitative, right? Clearly this is the quantitative, but that is not the whole story. That's only a fraction of the story, especially in this industry. So don't make this as a crutch, because if somehow it tanks next month, then you're the soothsayer that was lying, right? So.
And it's always historical. So right. I've said this before, but all our data does is it establish a trend line. So if it's historical, it just tells us what way we moved. It doesn't confirm which way it's going to go. It gives us the likelihood of the path it's going to take. So the more often we sample the data, that's why we're doing it monthly, we start to get a more accurate representation of market trends. So use this as a tool and then help your consumer interpret that to get ahead. Like I always say, skate to where the puck's going rather than where it is. Like use this, and I'm happy to brainstorm this. If y'all want to set up a call and like how to role play all these different things, I'm perfectly into that. Like would be excited to do that, but make sure to tell a story with it. Don't just dump the data on them.
Right.
Hey, I have a question.
Go.
Hello. Okay. How come houses are still selling in a matter of days? It seems like people would price them higher since there is such a low inventory. I don't know.
So it's market elasticity. So with supply and demand, you will find that people will they'll do one of two things. They will price low and let the consumers bid it up, or they'll price high, but maybe not so high that they break the elastic of the potential consumer. So if we're seeing tons of homes sell already, I know that I've talked to Kim Winters and some other people, for the first time in a long time, we're having appraisals coming back below contract price right now. And that's your lenders pushing back. I mentioned this on the team leader call, but that's the lenders pushing back saying, nope, we believe that we have some artificial inflation here. This isn't a standard appreciation, which they will account for. So when you can stretch that elastic as far as you can go without breaking it is the key. That's the sweet spot. And if they're still selling, it's an indicator that we're doing that.
Yeah.
And Amy, I'd add to that when a seller wants to price it higher than you think the market suggests, that you can use this absorption rate and percent of price to set expectations of what buyers are looking for as well.
That's right.
So if you're the one house that is not selling, that looks a lot worse in a hot market. So if we mess up and we barely underprice your home, the market's going to correct us. We're going to get multiple offers and we'll go for above asking price. If we mess up and we overprice your home, then what buyers are seeing is homes flying off the market really fast. When one comes to look at this house, if they like it, the first question they're going to ask is, how come this one didn't sell fast when everything else did? Do you think they'll take a low ball offer? And we're going to get beat up. So we're going to net less by making that mistake.
And Matt's exactly right. So if we see as a buyer's agent or someone working on the buyer side of the transaction, if we're seeing high days on market count, that's well, number one, look and see what the history is. Because often you'll see a lot of days on market and they've just made a price reduction and then your buyer still expects an unreasonable amount off of list price. So make sure to understand the difference between cost and value. So we want to make sure that we're taking into account, hey, how does this compare to the rest of the market? Do you see high days on market? If you're going into a listing consult, that is like the ugly duckling. Matt hit it. If you're in this market and you're not selling, you're likely to not even get the showings. That's when consumers don't even come because they're like, that's an unrealistic seller. So don't get in that boat.
Yeah, 100%. Like George Costanza likes to say, it's not you, it's me, right? It's not the market, it's what we've done here.
That's right.
So I have a question. If you have a potential seller who does not seem to have any urgency, even though the market is competitive, but just life-wise, I have some potential sellers who are planning on just retiring elsewhere, but are not in a rush, and the house needs a lot of work. How would you proceed?
Anyone jumping on this?
Are you trying to get a price drop?
Well, I think they're reasonable about what we could price it at. It's more that I don't know whether to kind of push to list sooner, knowing like they can't get a contractor in because the contractors are so behind to actually do the work that I think would make it much more attractive. So I'm just a little bit not sure about which direction to.
Is it on the market already?
Well, I'm sorry?
Is it already on the market?
No, it is not yet on the market.
So, I mean, I don't know what other people think. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I quit turning down listings because I thought that the seller was unreasonable on price. So as an example, I'm closing on a house we priced at $525 today. I put it in front of 3 brokers and 2 appraisers, and all of them told me there's no way it goes over 500. And the first day on the market, we got a call from the kitchen at 9 a.m. from our first showing with a full price offer. And so like I use it as I'm going to make my best efforts to get it sold at this price. What we need to do is read the market. All of this report stuff that we're looking at, that's in our rear view mirror. Buyers are also looking out the windshield at what else is competitive out there when they're looking at homes. So if the feedback we get is either no showings, we're overpriced. We're getting showings, but everybody's telling us we're overpriced. We need to get in front of that dragon instead of chasing the tail and do a quick price adjustment. So as long as you're willing to price with the market, I'm willing to spend money and put in 100% effort to get the home sold. That's how I approach that when I don't know what other people do.
That's exactly the script. If you think I'm going to walk into this kitchen and tell you exactly what your house is going to sell for, you're mistaken. I'm going to use the data and the historical evidence to best predict what range I expect it to be in. What I would ask from you is that we are students of the market as a group. We're going to study how the market responds to your home. and then be active and nimble in adjusting it to get you the highest net we can in the appropriate amount of time.
Actually, I just had a similar conversation, and one of the things that I brought up, essentially, it's the financial concept of the time value of money.
Yep.
Right. Future dollars, you got to discount them to today. So if it's I know it's hard. We just had a contractor knock on my door at the beginning of the call, right? It's hard to get them to come to your home. That will take a long time to repair. If you start looking at the market with them and see that all the homes are ready to go, then if I'm a buyer, I see less potential upside in investing in a home that's basically already done. It may be in their best interest to have some things left to do, so that the buyer can say, hey, I'm getting a deal. I can put in this extra money myself, and then I'll benefit on the other side. So if I think we're near a peak, I'm personally further away from that peak if I buy this house that needs a little bit more investment in it. There's upside potential for me. And if that saves them the time, hassle, energy, and everything else, and potentially missing the wave of the market as well, that's something worth considering.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
And remember, Gary Keller's favorite thing, you never know it's the peak of the market, so you're past it.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that there is nothing worse than telling someone their house isn't worth what they think it is, and some other broker lists it.
Yeah.
And then they do 2 price drops over the next 3 months, and it closes, and you were right, and they were paid.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were right, and they were paid. I love that.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome, everyone. Well, unless someone has another question about the data, I will let you get the rest of your days back. We'll be posting this on Facebook, and Henderson and Haywood counties to follow.
Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you, Zach.
Wildly
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
See y'all. Go get them.
Yeah.